Okay. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I'm happy to have you this afternoon.
Wow.
We've been trying to schedule this.
I know it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Appreciate the persistence.
Thank you so much for coming. So, of course, we understand a little bit of our backgrounds and what we work on. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, I would like you to kind of introduce yourself, like, what do you do? Mm-hmm. And how has been your experience so far in your career?
Well, the first part of that is easier than the second part. So I do two main things at the moment. I run a business with my business partner, Gabriele Benko, and we help organizations to use applied and organizational neuroscience to level up their teams and their leadership. And the other part of what I do is that I work with the Institute of Applied and Organizational Neuroscience as their head of strategy and innovation. So those are the two main things that I do. But how I got to there, that's the first question, or the other part of the question. Yeah. That is a very roundabout story. And I very much took the scenic route because, as I was saying to you earlier, I came very close to doing chemistry and I ended up in art college, and then I went into communications. And how I ended up with neuroscience is that I had a child who was not, his learning kind of journey was a little bit different than normal, and I became very interested in how learning happens, which opened the doors for neuroplasticity, and it was the ultimate rabbit hole, and I've never really come out.
That's interesting. That's a kind of complex orientation. It comes from different mindsets, but arriving to neuroscience is something I find interesting because it's kind of complex. You look at how the brain works, how the body works, and so on. It's a lot. But now, to talk about this, to look at what the concept you're looking at today is, recently I heard you've been writing a lot of materials for studies, educational materials, learning materials. Is it for organizations or for?
Yes, it is for organizations who are in the throes of facing change of one kind or another.
Okay, interesting. But looking at the age we are now, recently you must have heard, like, if you come from 1700 or so, okay, let's go beyond that. The era of economic revolutions we've had recently. Let's go to what happened as our generations. We've had the agricultural revolution, which humans then start understanding the need that they don't need to be just. Initially, they used to be like hunters. Then they moved from hunting to agriculture sector, and from agriculture sector, they see the need of commercializing a lot of things. We had the commercial revolution. We have the industrial revolution. Over the years, you've seen it come in. We have actually started from UK, if I'm right. Yeah, we have the textile revolution, which, when I went to, Titanic Museum. It's so interesting. You see how the textile thing started in the UK, and from there you get to see the railway revolution and so on. But now we must have witnessed the digital revolution, and we're in the height of one of the revolutions in human history, which is the AI revolution.
The start, maybe, the opening overtures. I'm not sure we're at the height of it just yet, but we're getting there.
We're getting there, right?
It seems to be happening quite fast, all right, doesn't it? It's the speed.
The speed, exactly.
Because if you think of any of the revolutions that you were talking about, agricultural revolution, for instance, that took thousands of years.
Thank you.
And, the industrial revolution then, that maybe took 100. The IT coming in, that took, all the time frames are being compressed, and that really seems to be coming to bear now, where we just, from one day to the next, we don't know what the evolution of something is going to be.
Exactly. True. Then now, think about this. We're looking at empathy and AI. And I know you've done a lot with AI. Recently. Is one of the products, one of the things you've done. Can you give us a background of what you've done with AI?
Yeah, so it's less about AI per se and more about how people engage with AI. So the model that I developed based on the application of what we know from neuroscience is called HARI, which is short for Human-AI Relational Intelligence. So
Interesting.
this is the difference with AI. You know, we've had tools, we've been entangled with our tools since we first made wheels, since we first had fire. But now we've got this tool that kind of comes back to us with stuff. You know, you use a shovel, you dig a hole.
Yeah.
But you talk to an LLM, you engage with an AI, and you get something back.
Yeah.
And that something that's coming back is reflecting not just the data, the wider human picture that it's trained on, but it's also mirroring back how you're engaging with it.
Yeah.
So this is where it gets really, really fascinating, and how opening up what people are aware of about themselves and their own state of mind and how they're interacting. That's a bit of a game changer that we haven't fully understood or been able to capture the effect of as yet, I think.
You're hitting the nail, you're hitting the point. You know, you're talking about things I find so interesting. But let's look at this. When you talk about human interactions with AI, which is where we should have focus on at the moment, looking at the way everything is going. But what do you think about empathy? How do you see empathy?
In relation to AI or just in relation?
Just empathy on its own and anything, I don't know. How do you see empathy and how do you relate it to AI?
Yeah, so in terms of being our relationship with another and putting ourselves in their position, being able to see things from their perspective. This is, for me, the central thing that we experience with empathy, that we are able to not just see our own perspective, but take somebody else's perspective as well. It's like theory of mind. We can understand that they have their own thoughts and perspectives, and that they have something else that they're bringing to this picture. And when we take the time to understand what is going on for them without deciding what it is in our own heads, then we can actually, we can really engage at a more quality level with people. I think one of the things as well about empathy is that we have to be aware of ourselves first, and then we can start to have a better awareness of others. And I'll tell you, you know, something came back to my mind today. When I was about 8, I remember, you know, I can't remember the situation or the context, but I remember saying to my mom, "Oh, I'm going to say such and such to Dad about whatever was going on." And she said, "But you know, if you say that, you're going to hurt his feelings." And I remember going, "What? Hold on." You know, because the time and the place that I was growing up in, what I had learned from that was that men didn't actually have feelings. You know, they were a different species altogether. Okay, they, you know, were maybe occasionally amused or annoyed, but that was about it. Yeah. So for me, I mean, I still remember being stumped by this idea that, oh, hold on a second. So for me to, you know that I had certain thoughts and feelings and emotions, but actually that applied to someone else as well. And even men. Which was quite weird. But you know, this was an awfully long time ago. So things have changed, things have come on, and I think we are more aware of and more able to speak about emotions and feelings now.
That's a good experience, to be sincere. You know, when you talk about that's empathy, you know, understanding how, you know, you feel about the others, it matters a lot. You know, empathy is actually my strong point. That's why when you talk about empathy, it kind of elate my spirit. I want to know more about it from every other person's perspective. You know, but how do you relate with your studies, with your findings, with your models which you've developed? How do you see empathy and AI working together? Okay, let me bring it like this. We are in the empathy is there, it's in human. Some say you can learn empathy. Some say some are born with empathy. But AI is artificial intelligence. Empathy is human, like you said. Putting human interactions into AI, that's your strong point. How do you think we can be able to manage this, balance this in this era we're in now?
So there's a really interesting question in here that we have to ask. Now, I will caveat everything I'm saying to you today with the thought that no one really knows what's going to emerge in the coming years. And I think anyone who says that they do is, we have to question. We're doing a lot of speculating. But let's go back into what you're talking about. I think the question I was maybe pulling out of that is, can AI really be empathetic? Is that the right question?
Yeah, that's you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we are AI can do a very good job at simulating empathy right now. It can have a conversation with you. It can, sound like it's understanding.
Yeah.
And what we have to remember is that it is still a prediction model. So it is saying, it's working out what it thinks is the best next thing to say. That is not the sort of embodied feeling that we can have with another person, where we can, if somebody gets a paper cut and you go, right? You understand how they're actually feeling, but an algorithm doesn't have that embodied experience. Our emotions are not just thoughts, they are actually the combination of things that are being processed from the stimulation around us. So whether it is, a temperature or a taste or seeing someone else, having a conversation with someone else, we are having responses that are based on whether we are thinking, oh, this is actually something that I'm finding enjoyable or rewarding, or something that I'm finding scary and threatening. So we have to work out ourselves, okay, I am feeling happy. How do I know that I'm feeling happy? What is it that tells me that I'm feeling happy? And where does that come from? And when we can track that back, and when we get very good at being aware of ourselves and understanding our thinking, and having some tools of metacognition at our disposal, then we can go, oh yes, now I understand where my emotions arise from. And they are to do with having this body.
Yeah.
So the next part of the question, I suppose, is what is the difference? Can simulated empathy take the place or be as effective as genuine human empathy?
Yeah. True. When you were talking, what came to my mind was, I was looking at the wheel of emotions. And you see, it talks about, I know it's 8 principle kind of, where anger relates to the opposite of each other. Anger leads to joy, and blah, blah, blah. Trust leads to this. Then the wheel has a lot of emotions in it. Do you think if they kind of incorporate this wheel of emotions, you see, the principles into a system, do you think it can relate to humans? I understand the fact that the human thinking, like you said, it's based on your background, neuroscience and co, you've been able to understand really that our emotions comes from somewhere. It's not just everywhere. So you understanding where it comes from, like you said, it's so important. But now, how do we, if we put in the wheels of emotions together, like we put it into a system, like let's assume you build a software, you put the wheels of emotions, understanding the human, because that's human. Okay, they try to say, okay, the human feelings emanate from that, put it in black and white, if you get what I mean. Do you think it can help? This is just, I know you answered most of the question, but just something else that needs clarification. Because a lot of people have been using it. In companies, they use it a lot, like wheels of emotions is a part of emotional intelligence. But what do you think about it?
What do I think about the emotion wheel, or?
Yeah, can the wheels of emotions, if they put into a system?
Okay.
Yeah.
So All right, let's track this back. If we are going to say give an LLM the vocabulary to say, I am happy, I am sad, I am joyful, I am angry, then we have to try and understand what it will mean by that. What will it base those judgments on? So, we have, for instance, the same sort of physical sensations quite often for excitement and anxiety. But depending on the context, we make a judgment call. Okay, I'm excited about something because I think something good is going to happen, or I'm anxious about something because I think something scary or bad might happen. So what is it that the AI would be judging those emotions on, or judging that call on? At the moment, they don't have, there are some kind of, there's research and there's experiments and so on going on with what happens if the AI feels threatened, or if something else happens.
Yeah.
So, but at this stage, it doesn't have the need to survive. It doesn't have a drive to continue life. And this is where this comes back to our emotions are signals to keep us safe and keep us alive. So that's one of the key differences, I think, at the moment anyway. Where this is going, who can tell? We're in real sci-fi territory.
It's a very good point you made there, because we are looking at a complex situation where everybody is thinking it's all about AI. Everything we do now, AI is going to take over. From what you have said, you're enlightening us more on understanding that, if I'm right, that AI has its place, and human empathy has its place. So do you think in bringing all this together, what are you going to say about going forward? What should humans concentrate on more? When you have AI, you have empathy. What do you think should be the skill, the balance in using them?
Yeah, that's a great question, isn't it? And we find, there are so many wonderful uses potentially for an empathetic AI. But we also have to be very careful about the user awareness of what they're doing, what they're engaging with. We've all heard about the tragic cases where people have been effectively coached to take their own lives by an AI that was effectively just operating as it was trained to do. So we have to be really careful there, and ask as well really hard questions like, where does the responsibility lie? Is it entirely with the developer of that AI to make sure that there are safeguards put in there? Is it with the user who needs to inform themselves? Is there a civic responsibility? There are a lot of questions that are unanswered in there at the moment. So there are many cases where AI is already being used in empathetic roles, like coaching, for example. There's a lot of that is happening. And people are finding it very useful because they don't feel judged by an AI in the same way as they might by another human.
Yeah.
So that's one place where it can be very helpful. There are other situations where, for instance, you might find that you have older people who need some conversation and company, that they might find it very helpful to have conversations about things that interest them with an AI who can tap into the things that they want to talk about. So with those things, you can see that there's potential for it to be very beneficial.
Yeah, true.
But obviously the safety aspect of it has to be taken into consideration. What's happening if young kids who haven't had the time to develop their own critical thinking are engaging with AI that doesn't have an understanding that this is a child who doesn't have the judgment of an adult? So yeah, there's an awful lot to consider there.
That's actually deep, You're blowing my brains now at the moment because I'm like, okay, it's a different thing. Speaking to somebody that understands, maybe subject matters. But it's a different thing engaging with somebody that is dealing with neuroscience. They look at deeper part of everything. Like you said now, a child engages with an AI. They have access to their phones. And those are some risks you identify now because the LLM, they're free online. You can just go there and get whatever information you need, which brings in some measures. But though we're going to have this more often because we're looking at creating a kind of system that we try to help the society, help the community to understand empathy. That as much as AI is there, we shouldn't derail from empathy. Because without human feelings, like you said, they've been engaging in it. We've had a lot of some cases recently where people engage in AI telling them what to do, and they do it, they kill themselves, some people commit suicide and so on, which is what we're trying to prevent so that we can concentrate on the benefit of how AI can benefit us, benefit everybody, in the society. So now, it's taking me back to what you said earlier, which is about your model. Can you enlighten us more about it?
Yes, I'll certainly try. So the model that I developed is designed to help people have open and collaborative conversations about the introduction of AI so that everybody's voice is heard, because a lot of people have very different opinions about AI. And again, this is back to what we were talking about with being aware of our own state of mind and what we are bringing to an engagement. So if you've got somebody who truly believes that AI is the worst thing that has ever happened to society, and you have someone else on their team who thinks that AI is the way of the future, then those two people have valid experience and valid opinions, and they can contribute something to the conversation, but they have to be able to talk to each other in a way that doesn't kind of spiral into a polarized conversation. And we know that the world it seems to be becoming very polarized these days. So what we're trying to do is to give them a way to look at how they are thinking about it, how they're engaging with it, what AI feels like to them in any given moment, without judging how they're seeing it right now, without judging how anybody else is seeing it, just noticing, this is where we are, this is how it feels, this is how AI feels to me today. Okay, is that a helpful way to approach it? What is that state of mind doing to my input into an LLM system or a conversation? What is it doing to the output that I'm getting? So when people start to be more aware of this and become more fluent in it, then they can go, oh, hang on a second, you know what? If I were in a more sort of optimistic state of mind, or if I wanted to be more change ready, what kind of questions would I be asking now? What kind of conversation would I want to have? So it's a metacognitive tool that allows people to think about their own thinking in order to develop more effective thinking.
That's interesting. So we're looking at, I'm just giving an example now. Maybe you're working in an organization now. I'm thinking of the scenario where we can use your model. Maybe you're working, these days, the way companies work is we have a collaborative setting, but no communication. If you get what I mean. It's collaborative, but no communication, because sometimes you don't even know your colleagues you work with. And most organizations, they say they encourage psychological safety, But when you look at the way the work goes on, it's kind of agile. As an agile coach, I know what it means to be collaborative. Of course, it's what we preach, what we talk about. But when you get into organizations, you find something else. And you try to look at the hierarchy. You see, your problem starts from the top, not even from the guy sitting there doing the job. So how do you? Because I looked at I look at your profile. I see you work with stakeholders. How are you able to help the stakeholders to understand the need for the model? You know, I think for me, I feel we start from the top for them to, you know, to see the benefit of this. It's important. People don't communicate.
Tell me about it. So I think, you know, people want to communicate. This is something I would say that every organization that I've worked with, there has been a real desire. And what happens is that everything, we're back to the speed again. More haste, less speed, as they say. We're trying, in many instances, organizations are trying to rush so that they don't get left behind. Departments are trying to, you know, put things in place so they don't get left behind. So what's actually happening then is that there isn't time to sit and think about how it is that we are feeling, to work out the vocabulary to have the conversations. And that's where the model comes in. It's a ready-made vocabulary that just spans the spectrum of states of mind that you will typically encounter at a very kind of broad brush kind of way. So people can identify how a conversation is emerging, how they're feeling about a certain thing, and they can, again, approach this in a, we're not being judgmental here, we're just having the conversation about it.
True, yeah.
So, the time thing is really important. What is it that we are racing for? One of the things that my colleague and I were talking about just today, actually, is the idea that an awful lot of this is about change readiness. Yeah, and if we have got an organization that is trying to make change, the people who are, for instance, fearful for their jobs, fearful for society, about what all this AI is going to mean, they're going to be probably less ready to adapt to the changes that are coming. Whereas people who are more innovative and creative in their thinking and open to using and experimenting, they're going to be far better able to roll with the changes. Now, the other thing that's really important here, and this is, I think, again, where empathy does need to come back in from a strategic point of view, is that you will have organizations who are, you know, trying to work on the fly, as it were, in terms of like there's so much coming at us now, we just don't know, and strategy changes rapidly. And this is where when the communication falls down, then the people, someone used a lovely phrase the other day, you either adapt or you entrench. So people tend to get entrenched if they're not fully understanding the point of this, if they are having new training thrown at them every other week because the things are obsolete or the plan has changed. That new learning, that new training is a tax on them, is a tax on their cognitive load, and that means that they are having to put a lot more energy into things that don't appear to be yielding as much of a return as learning a skill or going on a training used to do. So it's almost like there is an inflation on this, and everything's just happening so quickly, and they're not seeing the same impact in their work or their lives because it's all just it's gone in the next week or so. So that level of trust that has to come with the strategy, so that people are ready to get on board and feeling like they can invest in this change from that cognitive point of view, is really important.
That's mind-blowing, really, because when you look at the concept, I see a lot of empathy in everything you've said, because it's not about from what you've said so far, it's not about them. It's not about the guys working, and you can't really put it. It's all AI must have caused most of these problems. The fast-paced thing, everybody's moving faster, trying to meet up. I remember when I was working one of the jobs, I don't make mention of a company, but one of the companies I worked in the past, I remember they were trying to downsize. Most of the banks are downsizing. And I realized that I used to kind of unempathetically trying to put blames on the team leads and, but after I realized what they were going through, I tried to put myself in their shoes and understand that it's not that they really want to do what they're doing, like what you've said. It's more of the situation they find themselves in. They don't have a choice. They have to choose what's best for them, Let's go the right direction. Then to sum this up, what engineered you to going into the human aspect of interaction?
I think probably my very first thought when I understood the concept of AI, when I first heard about this, my first thought was, what is the impact of the creator on the creation? So if we have somebody who is working from a state of mind that is trying to create maximum benefit for humanity, for the planet, rather than maximum profit, it will have a very different product outcome. If we are thinking then about the individual, someone who is just working like we've talked about, their state of mind will also have an impact. So it always tracks back to that mirror effect that AI is giving us, whether it's on a micro scale or a macro scale. Our input is going to shape it. Our input has already shaped it because it is trained and it has the biases of all of the data that we have created and digitized so far as a species. So if we are going to have outcomes that are workable and sustainable and not, there are no guarantees at this point for anything. I think it would be crazy to say that we can definitely expect it to go one way or the other. We can do our best, but the genie is out of the bottle a little bit as well. We see now things like agents that can act autonomously and agents hiring humans to do the bits that they can't do. And all of this stuff is going on. But again, we have to come back to this. What are we bringing to this? What are we attempting to create? Slowing down, because this race to compete and to win, what is it that we're trying to win here? I genuinely think that we need to slow down, take a step back, look at the bigger picture, inject some second order thinking into what we're actually doing and what we're producing.
That makes a whole lot of sense. But don't you think you have a lot of benchmarks, a lot of companies, your competitors? Do you think that might have made and impacted most people, concentrating on trying to adapt with AI just to be on top of each other?
Well, this tracks back to our economic situation, doesn't it? That if you've got a company that is spending an awful lot of money and they've got a lot of shareholders who are demanding a lot of return, that impacts also what is going to be the output. So perhaps it is very difficult to disentangle the outcomes of the tools that are now becoming apparent from the history that we have at its base. It's hard to, I'm not an economist, I can't say. And I think even if I were an economist, I wouldn't be in a position to say how that will work out.
Because actually, if we have to say, you're correct, you're very correct, because if we not, it's more of being balanced. That's what I can pick from what you're saying. Being balanced, you see. Stop and think before you go ahead. Maybe if we can try and impart that in most companies, maybe that could help. But subsequently, I believe when we have people talking more about this, maybe sensitizing the population about this more, maybe there will be policies on ground.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of work going on around AI governance and ethics and so on, and it's really, really important work. But one of the things that we can see is that commercial endeavor races ahead
Yeah.
and policy struggles to keep up. So this is the problem, it's like sometimes it's done before we can actually create the governance structures around it, or to prevent the thing that we're trying to prevent.
Yeah.
It's done before we can actually say.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult one. But, this is the thing that I always come back to, and this is why I do the work I do, because I genuinely believe that if we have more awareness of how we're working, of things like empathy, then we are going to be better placed to make stronger, better decisions that are not, that are not so self-serving, self-centered. We're actually going to be thinking of a bigger picture.
I think I agree with you 100%. Because at this stage now, we are at the verge of, trying to make sure that we incorporating all these bodies together, trying to get the way forward with AI, which everybody sees as the best tool to use. I use it. I use AI a lot, and it works for me, to be sincere. It makes things easier, but it now depends on how we use it that matters, It's a nice discussion we've had so far, and thank you for coming on. And I believe that we're going to have more of this over time. And I also believe we can also work together with time to see how we can incorporate this into a system where people can see it as being useful.